Hello friends, welcome to Wawa AS. Welcome to the discussion on Economy PT 365. This is part 6 of the lecture series. Hope you have seen the other 5 parts. If you haven't watched, I'll leave the link of the playlist in the description. You can just go and watch it. Okay? Now let's begin. But before that, just I want to clarify one small thing. Lot of people have been asking how to approach these videos. Guys, the best way to approach these videos is first watch the videos carefully, because here we are covering all the important ones and their explanation. I'm trying to make things very simple for you so that you will be able to remember and retain things. So after watching the video, just go to your study room and take PD 365 or its summary. Okay, so take it out and just go through it once. I'm definitely telling you that then you will be remembering and you will be retaining things in your mind very well. Okay, so after that you can just revise it whenever you want. Guys, our aim is simple: to make preparation easy for you, and for that only we are launching all of these initiatives, because already UPSC is so stressed that you have to cover a lot of things and a lot of things will be there in your mind. So easily we are trying to ensure that we make things easy for you in the best way possible, so that you will be able to clear exam, or you will be able to give your best in the exam. That is what is important. Okay? Now let's begin. So now we'll start with the third topic, which is financial system and financial market. So the first topic what we have in this is the RBI's financial stability report. So this financial stability report, remember, is released by RBI, and this is released biannually. That means once in every 6 months. Okay? That means 2 reports every year. And this report basically is an assessment of the subcommittee of Financial Stability Development Council, which is headed by the Deputy Governor of RBI. Okay? And this subcommittee basically will deal with all of the aspects, and they will discuss and deliberate, and finally the RBI will release the report. So this FSDC, Financial Stability and Development Council, if you see, this is headed by the Union Finance Minister, and this council has the members. Who are the members? Who are the chairmen? Who are the heads of various regulatory bodies like the RBI, SEBI, IRDAI, etc. So all these heads will be part of this council, and all the people together they will discuss and deliberate with regard to various issues related to the economy. Okay, related to the macro economy at large, right? So if you see the key findings of this financial stability report, one important thing that was told is the increase in gross NPAs. So the NPAs have increased when we compare the report, when we see from March 2020 to March 2021. This is one major thing. And second thing is the NBFC's funding declining market share. That means the funding to the NBFCs, they have declined from market. So that means there might be a liquidity crisis with regard to NBFCs. This is another important thing that was said. And third one is with regard to the risks to the global economic prospects, because already all the global economies are overburdened, and the COVID-19 pandemic has accentuated everything. Okay? And also we are seeing geopolitical tensions, economic losses, etc. So there is a greater risk in the world economy at large. This is what is said by this report. Now let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is with regarding to the National Strategy for Financial Education by RBI for the year 2020 to 2025. So this National Strategy for Financial Education aims to empower the people, to provide financial literacy to the people, to develop knowledge, skills, attitude and behavior to manage money better and plan for the future. Okay, all these knowledge is delivered to the people. So under this plan, this is given to the people. And this plan was initially for the first time released in 2013, from 2013 to 2018. It's a kind of 5-year plan. Okay, now the second plan is released, which is from 2020 to 25. Okay? And if you see who prepares this strategy, it is prepared by the National Center for Financial Education. Okay, this is the entity that prepares it, and this is done by consulting financial sector regulators like RBI, SEBI, IRDAI, etc. Okay? So also here there is this status of India's financial literacy which is given. So this says that 27% respondents, they have achieved the minimum score, that is minimum threshold in the components like financial literacy, that is financial knowledge, financial attitude, etc. So 27% respondents only have the knowledge. That means still there is a huge gap which we need to fill. And also East, Center and North Zone need more attention. because if you see to the northeast, a lot of people still live in poverty, and also the people are more backward compared to that of the other regions. So that's why they need more support, more attention in fact. Okay? And also the rural people, the people in the rural areas and the people above 50 years, they are the marginalized people and they need more protection and they need more support as well. Okay? Now let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is with regarding to the payment systems, where RBI unveiled a framework for the creation of umbrella entity to manage the payment systems. So now what is this umbrella entity, we will see. We have this organization called the NPCI, the National Payment Corporation of India. Here it is given with regard to NPCI. This NPCI, if you see, this is the umbrella retail organization. That means it manages everything. It manages all the money payments in the economy. The retail payments, when we talk about UPI payments, when we talk about NEFT, when we talk about RTGS, so when we talk about IMPS, so all of these things are maintained, all of these things are actually created by the by the NPCI only, the National Payment Corporation of India. This NPCI is that umbrella body which manages retail payments of all the banks. Okay? This is created by 10 core promoter banks and RBI. So RBI, Indian Bank Association and the 10 core promoter banks, they combinedly created this NPCI. Okay? So if you see currently the market, the NPCI is so big that it has more than 70 to 80% of market value, market share. Okay, this only deals with all of the payments. Now what is the issue is that this has become too big to fail and we have only one such entity. Now as there is a lack of competition, there is a less chance for innovation, because the important thing in the market, the important thing with regard to market force is that when the competition increases, the innovation increases and also the cost for the customer decreases. So all of these things will happen because of the market forces. So that is the reason RBI now is thinking to give new permissions for creation of new umbrella entities, new entities which will manage the retail payments. Okay, so that is the thought process of RBI behind this, right? Now we will see some key important things with regarding to this. So the key guidelines were given. Okay, so what are the key guidelines? So this has to be incorporated under the Companies Act of 2013, and also this should be completely owned by Indian resident citizen. So this should be completely owned by a resident Indian citizen and the paid up capital should be 500 crore. Okay, so these are the two important things you can say. And also this will operate clearance and settlement system for participating banks and non-banks, and identify and manage relevant risks. So all the risk management, all the clearance and settlements, everything will be done by this entity only. So that's why it's called an umbrella entity, because it has lot of functions. So some other important things with regarding to the payment systems, if you see, the RTGS is now available round the clock. Before it used to be between morning till evening. Now it is available round the clock, the RTGS. So another important thing is the launch of Pi. So Pi is nothing but a chatbot which is launched by NPCI, and this is created by a Bangalore based startup CoreOver Private Limited. And this, if you see this Pi, actually this is to generate awareness to the people. This is to generate awareness with regarding to FASTag, RuPay, UPI, AEPS in real time. So all of these things are the products of NPCI only. All of these things are the products of NPCI only. Okay, so they will be taken care. So their awareness will be spread by this Pi. Next, what you have is the DuckPay. So DuckPay is nothing but the digital payment app of the Indian Post Payment Bank. This Indian Post Payment Bank belongs to the post office. Basically belongs to the Post Office Corporation, you can say. Okay? So as the Post Payment Bank is launched, now they have launched this digital payment app called DuckPay. Okay? Remember this DuckPay. So next you have is another thing given is the launch of RuPay card phase 2 in Bhutan. So RuPay card, as you know, it belongs to India. So this RuPay is the payment settlement system that belongs to India. So recently they have launched it in Bhutan. So this RuPay is also a product of NPCI only, launched in 2012. It's indigenous debit, credit and international prepaid card, contactless card. Okay, and the RuPay cards issued by it is currently issued by more than 1100 banks, both private and public combined. And India launched the RuPay card in countries like UAE, Bahrain, Singapore, Saudi and Bhutan. Okay, so this is the basic initiative of NPCI to build a core banking structure and propel India towards a cashless digital economy. So this cashless digital economy is something, the vision of Prime Minister. Okay, so this is what we are heading towards. So here the differences between NEFT, National Electronic Fund Transfer, the RTGS, real-time gross settlement system, the IMPS, the immediate payment system. So all the differences are given. Just pause and go through these ones. Okay, so this might become handy in some or the other MCQ. So just pause and go through it. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the next topic. RBI's Payment Infrastructure Development Fund. This Payment Infrastructure Development Fund, if you see, it's a 500 crore fund where RBI will be contributing 250 crores and the remaining will be contributed by the card issuing banks and the networks. This actually, if you see, as the name suggests, the fund will be used for development of payment infrastructure, both physical as well as the digital modes of payment infrastructure. Okay? So this will be mainly used to deploy the point of sale machines. The point of sale machines means the small machines which can be used both for deposit as well as the withdrawal of money. Okay? Actually, last year the government appointed a committee under Nandan Nilekani for the deepening of digital payments. Deepening of digital payments means ensuring that even the lower sections of the society like the poor and the rural households, even they also should be able to do the payments digitally. This is what is the deepening of digital payment means. Easily this fund was created. Okay? And the POS machines means the point of sale machines, okay, which we have discussed already. Next topic, if you see, here it is given the Payment Infrastructure Development Fund scheme. What is this scheme all about? So as we have discussed already, this fund will be used to develop the physical as well as digital infrastructure, right? And under this scheme, this fund will be used mainly in the tier 3 to tier 6 cities, and the focus will be on the northeast. Okay? Because these are the areas which are least integrated, or you can say which are least connected digitally. And this Payment Infrastructure Development Fund subsidizes banks and the non-banks with respect to the payment infrastructure deployment, right? And the Nandan Nilekani committee we have discussed already. So these are some of the committee recommendations. This was not in news in recent times, it was news much before, so this is not much important from the examination point of view, but you can just go through it once. Just pause the video and go through it once. If you have any doubt, do ask your question in the comment box. We will get back to you. Okay? And the key features of the scheme, this is important, the key features. So this scheme, the Payment Infrastructure Development Fund scheme, it will be in operation for 2 years and also can be extended for another 2 years depending on the need. And this fund has a corpus of 350 crores. So 350 crore corpus, out of which RBI, as I told already, gave about 250 crores, and the remaining 95 crores will be given by the authorized card networks. So for now, it will be a 350 crore fund. Okay? And the aim is to create 30 lakh new digital touch points. So 30 lakh instruments like the POS and other things will be deployed. Okay? And this will be managed, this whole fund and everything will be managed by the Deputy Governor of RBI, because this is a huge fund and all. So RBI will be directly monitoring this. Let's move on to the next topic. This is with regard to bilateral netting. I'll explain you in simple words what is bilateral netting. Most of you will be using an app, and this app is called Splitwise. Okay? What it will do? It will simplify the transactions happening between two people, right? Am I right? Okay. So this bilateral netting is one such thing. Let's take two persons or two corporate entities, A and B. Here you can see in this image two corporate entities, A and B. So A owes B 25,000 and B owes A 1 lakh, right? Now what is the resultant? The resultant is A owes B this much and B owes B this much. So the resultant is B will owe A 75,000 only, because A should give 25,000 and B should give 1 lakh. So we are deducting this 25,000 from this 1 lakh. So resultant, what B should be giving A is 75,000 only, right? Till now what is happening is there is no law. Okay, there is nothing concrete in the law which accepts this bilateral netting, which accepts this simplification. Every transaction has to be noted and every transaction has to be done. Because of this, the transaction costs have increased. So इसीलिए now this bilateral netting, this concept of bilateral netting has been brought, and the qualified Financial Contracts Act 2020 was enacted, okay, to give and to enforce this bilateral netting. Now this bilateral netting, this simplification of transactions can be done directly between two corporate parties, two counterparties in the financial contract. Okay, so okay, so the claims can be offset. This is the main thing, this is the main advantage. The transactions can be simplified. Generally, when two companies are transacting, when two corporate entities are transacting, there will be n number of transactions between A and B. Till now they are showing all these transactions differently, and they are making all these payments to and fro, and this is actually leading to lot of chaos, you can say, because the transaction costs are increasing and also a lot of paperwork has to be done. Now things will be more simplified. This type of bilateral netting, actually this is already there in a lot of countries like US, UK, Australia, Canada, Japan, etc. India now introduced this. What are the advantages of this bilateral netting? If you see, this will reduce the risk and regulatory capital burden for the banks. This will become easy for the banks as well, because when the bank is handling a lot of transactions, then the amount of capital which has to be kept aside also will increase. And also it reduces hedging cost and liquidity needs. Okay, so the initial liquidity needs or the faster needs, they can be fulfilled better. And also it establishes an efficient recovery mechanism. Okay, so as we discussed already, it's an efficient recovery mechanism. And these are some other information, you can just go through it. Here one small thing we'll discuss, the derivatives. So derivatives means it's a kind of security which will derive its value from an underlying asset, and this asset can be anything. Okay, for example, options, futures, forward, warrants, swaps, these are the type of derivatives. So underlying there will be an asset like any crop or any land or anything, it can be anything. ठीक है, इसको हम डेरिवेटिव बोलते हैं. एंड ओवर द काउंटर डेरिवेटिव्स मीन्स द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स विच आर ट्रेडेड बिटवीन टू पार्टीज डायरेक्टली विदाउट गोइंग टू एनी एक्सचेंज, इसको बोलते हैं ओवर द काउंटर डेरिवेटिव्स. इफ दे गो टू द एक्सचेंज दैट मीन इट्स अ डिफरेंट थिंग. इफ दे डोंट गो देन इसको हम बोलते हैं ओवर द काउंटर डेरिवेटिव्स. ठीक है, नाउ लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक. इंटरनेशनल फाइनेंशियल सर्विस सेंटर अथॉरिटी, this was in news because it released a framework for regulatory sandbox to tap the innovative financial technologies. Regulatory sandbox का मतलब क्या है? The regulatory sandbox, if you see, this is nothing but a type of testing tool, you can say, this sandbox, where generally, for example, let's take a company A. It's a company which is involved in financial sector, and this company, okay, which is involved in financial sector, which will bring a lot of financial instruments, and new financial instruments it will create. But the government, or you can say even this company, is not sure how this will perform. The performance is not ensured. Like what will be the impact on the economy, what will be the impact on the people. So all of these things have to be tested. To do all of these tests, this sandbox framework will be used. Okay? So the sandbox framework is nothing but the companies which want to introduce new financial instruments can come here and experiment with some innovative tools. Okay? This is what is the sandbox framework. And the regulatory sandbox refers to the live testing of these new products, okay, in a regulated manner. So this live testing in the sandbox in a regulated manner is nothing but the regulatory sandbox. And IFSCA, which is the International Financial Service Center Authority, located in Gift City, Gandhinagar. Okay, this is the premier authority which has released these guidelines, and this will encourage the financial tech initiatives. Okay. So this IFSCA has prescribed this regulatory framework for real estate investment trust and the infrastructure investment trust, because these are pretty new in India and they have to be tested properly before they are actually released into the market. Okay? Now let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is with regarding to the municipal bonds. Municipal bonds are basically normal bonds only. Okay, only the thing is that they will be released by the municipalities. Recently, the Lucknow Municipal Corporation has listed these bonds in the Bombay Stock Exchange. Okay, the municipality will release bonds and people will invest in these municipal bonds, and they will get some interest and the principal after the term is over. Okay? So these are basically debt securities as we have discussed already. There are two types of municipal bonds. One is the general obligation bond, where the money which the municipality got through these bonds, they will be used for water, sanitation and other things that the other functions of the municipality. Okay, and they are not backed by the revenue from a specific project. Only the general profits of the municipality, they will be shared. The general tax what is collected and other things what the municipality gets, other finance what the municipality gets, that will be shared. But there is other type of bond which is the revenue bond. This revenue bond, if you see, they are linked to specific kinds of projects. For example, a bridge construction or a toll construction. For all of these things, these revenue bonds will be used, where the returns will depend on the revenue of the project. ठीक है, इसको हम revenue bonds बोलते हैं. So as these municipal bonds, they are type of debt instruments, the SEBI will come into the picture because they have to be listed in the stock exchange. The SEBI has issued some guidelines for the municipal bonds because the municipalities should be in a position to return to the investors. They should be in a position to be able to pay interest to the investors, right? So what the SEBI has done is they have placed certain regulations, like that should these municipalities, they should not have any net negative worth in the last 3 years, and they should not have been defaulted in the repayment of any debt securities in the last 365 days. And for any project, the municipality has to contribute at least 20%, because this will show that the municipality has the capacity to invest. The municipality has the capacity to even repay. Okay? So these are some of the guidelines of SEBI. Now the next topic. So here some instruments are given, various bond instruments are given, we will see them in detail. First one is the surety bond. So let's take a case where A, B and C, three parties are there. The party A will provide some service to party C, and the party C has to pay to party A. Party C has to pay to party A, and party A will provide some service to party C. Now this whole transaction is guaranteed or is ensured by this party B. Okay, this is what is the surety bond means. Okay, in simple words. So the same thing is given here. This bond, this person B or this party B will ensure that party A will provide service to party C, and party C will pay to party A. So he will be a mediator. In fact, he will be the middle person who will bring surety to the whole transaction. This is called as surety bonds. Next is the console bonds. So this console bond means basically this type of bonds, they won't have any expiry date. That means forever the interest will be paid on these bonds. That is the concept of this console bonds. The next one is the negative yield bond. Generally, bond is a debt instrument. Okay, this company or country, whichever is releasing the bond, okay, this bond will be purchased by a certain investor, and they will invest the money, and in return they will get the interest rate, right? So in the negative yield bond means this bond will be purchased by this person A. This bond will be purchased by this person A. But the difference is that this person A will pay some interest for this company. This person A will give some money to this company, so that this company basically it will keep this money with them, and the money value is not eroded. This company will ensure that the money value is not eroded. This is what is the concept of negative yield bond. Okay, so China has sold this negative yield bond for the first time, and there was a high demand from the European investors, because if you see in Europe or US, what is happening is that the growth rate is not happening, and also last year the COVID has worsened the situation of the global economy. So now the China has released this negative yield bonds, where these investors, they will be paying the Chinese government some amount, some interest, so that the Chinese will keep the money with them, so that the money value will not get eroded, right? Next one is the zero coupon bond. So this means it is mainly the bond is issued at discount and redeemed at par. For example, 100 rupees bond is released. This 100 rupees bond cost price will be 98 only. The remaining 2 rupees, 98 will be the cost price. The remaining 2 rupees is what is the interest that the government will pay at the end while redeeming this bond. Okay, so this is what is the the bond issued at discount, because at 98 rupees only the bond is issued, and it is redeemed at par, it is redeemed at 100 rupees. The 2 rupees difference is nothing but the interest what the government is paying. Normally all the bonds which the government, which the Indian government will release, they will be this kind of zero coupon bonds only. The next one is in news recently, which is the social impact bond. Expect a question from this social impact bond. So social impact bonds, recently why this was in news is the Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation is near to Pune in Maharashtra. So this has signed an MOU with UNDP for the release of this social impact bond. So UNDP basically is providing the technical support. So about how to issue the bonds, how to technically deal with all of the stuff related to these bonds. So what are these social impact bonds? Generally, this social impact bond is the contract with a public sector or a governing authority where they will pay for social outcome in certain areas and pass on the part of saving achieved to the investors. Like for example, this municipal corporation has released the social impact bond, and the people, the investors have invested in this. See, the main aim or the main goal of these investors is not profit making, but mainly to fund the project. That will be the main aim of this investors. So here this Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, it is issuing these social impact bonds for the hospitals, for the development of hospitals. This is the main aim of this. Even the investors also will not expect much profits. Okay, for them the main aim is also the social impact only. So this municipal corporation, okay, they will issue bonds and the investors will invest. Now after certain time, what will happen is that the hospital will be constructed and it will run, and the revenue, and see, now the task is completed. As the task is completed, these investors, now they will get some principal plus some interest in return, as because the task is completed. Okay? And this interest will be generally less than what the market is giving, because here the main aim is social impact only, right? So isko hum bolte hain social impact bonds. So the government has also certain advantages, because normally, see, if the government allots, for example, 2000 crores for the construction of a hospital, everyone knows how this money will be utilized. Everyone knows that the whole 2000 crores will not be utilized efficiently. But for example, if the money is taken from outside, if the money is taken from certain investors, there will be key scrutiny. There will be key scrutiny over this money, and they will ensure that the investors will definitely ensure that the money which they gave will be utilized in the best possible way. Okay, so that is the advantage. And also for the government, the advantage is that there is no need for them to invest heavily in the initial phase, because already the government is facing a lot of issues, and already the government is facing this lack of capital with them. So this is a unique method which the government can use. This is not the first time in the world where this is being used. It was earlier introduced in UK, where the money is used for prison reforms and all. Okay, that was the first instance. Next one is the Bharat Bond Exchange Traded Fund, the ETF. So exchange traded fund means basically these are the securities which will track some other securities, in simple words. Okay, so these other securities, basically some group of companies, they will come together. Okay, and they will be traded together. Here Bharat 22 has 22 companies shares. Okay, these 22 company shares are combined and they are traded together in the stock market. And now the money which the Bharat ETF raises, that will be used by the government. ठीक है, इसको हम बोलते हैं ETF exchange traded fund, where the security is actually tracking certain kinds of various kinds of stocks, various kinds of securities. ठीक है. Now let's move on to the last one. Here some key concepts and entities which are in news are given. First one is the Qualified Institutional Payment, the QIP. So QIP is basically a capital raising tool. So this is used to raise the capital, where a listed company can issue shares, fully or partly convertible debentures or securities, which can be converted into equity shares on a later date. So initially they will not issue a equity share, but later this can be converted into an equity share. This is the main thing. Next one is the P notes. So P notes, if you see, these are the derivative instruments Generally, you have these large investors called the foreign portfolio investors. These foreign portfolio investors, what they will do? They will go to some other country. Okay, they will go to some other country, and there they will raise the money using these P notes. Using these P notes, that is the main thing. And the P notes became popular because there is no need for these small investors to follow all the SEBI guidelines, and this anonymity has made them very popular. Next is the domestic systematic important insurers. So last year, or these domestic systematic important banks, DSIBs, it was in use from quite some years. SBI, ICICI and HDFC, these three banks are called DSIBs, domestic systematically important banks, because they are very huge banks and they are considered as too big to fail. If these banks fail, then the whole economy is going to collapse. Then this is going to create a huge hurdle to the whole economy. Now, in the same way, the domestic systematic important insurance, DSIS, okay, this was introduced. This was where IRDAI, the Insurance Regulated Development Authority of India, has identified LIC, the General Insurance Corporation of India, and New India Assurance as the DSIS, the domestic systematic important insurance insurers. Okay, remember LIC, the GIC, and New India Assurance NIA. These three combinedly, they are the large insurance companies who are very important for the economy of the country, because they are considered as too big to fail. Next one is the LIBOR, the London interbank offer rate. So this is the global reference rate for unsecured short-term borrowing. So unsecured short-term borrowing is generally the overnight borrowing, which is from 1 to 14 days. So this is used as the benchmark globally. And in India, we have a similar kind of rate, which is the MIBOR, the Mumbai Interbank Offer Rate. Okay. So the next one is the social stock exchange. So currently, the SEBI is actually working on this social stock exchange, where investors will invest in shares, invest in certain shares which will be used for social enterprise. And the main aim of the social enterprise is to develop a social infrastructure as well as to gain some revenue. Okay, so gaining revenue as well as gaining revenue in a social objective is one of the main aim of this social stock exchange. For example, healthcare or clean energy. You can say they are similar to that of the previous thing what we have seen, similar to that of these social impact bonds. Okay, but these are bonds which are issued by a certain municipal authority. But these are different. These are the social stock exchanges where lot of people will be trading, and those shares will be used, the money which is raised through these shares, it will be used in various projects across the country, not at a single place. Okay? So next one is the shell company. Shell company in simple words is nothing but a company which is set up just for money laundering or tax evasion or any other thing. So these shell companies, they will not have any actual business, but they just exist on the papers, okay, for all of these illegal activities. Next one, you have the merchant discount rate, because the digital payment firms, they are demanding the reimbursement of this merchant discount rate. This merchant discount rate is nothing but the money which is paid by the merchants to the banks for the digital transactions that are happening with them. Okay? So recently, after the 1st of Jan 2020, the government said that the business with more than 50 crores turnover, they are actually offered low cost on the digital payments. Okay, and also for some, the MDR is abolished. Isliye this was in news. So next one is the Aadhaar payment enabled service. So Aadhaar payment enabled service is nothing but using Aadhaar, if the bank transactions can take place, isko bolte hain Aadhaar enabled payment service, and it is developed by NPCI, right? So next one is the liberalized remittances scheme. As most of you might know, liberalized remittances scheme is nothing but, under this scheme, an individual who is living abroad can send money up to $250,000 to his family who is living in India. Okay, isko bolte hain liberalized remittances scheme. So the limit is $250,000. Earlier, initially when it was started, it is only $25,000. So here this gives a chance to revise a concept called the current account convertibility and capital account convertibility. If you haven't read it, just go and read it once. Give a brief reading once, you will understand it clearly. If you have any doubt, just do ask your doubts in the comment box. We'll definitely get back to you. Right. So next one, another important thing what we have is the weather sensitive indices. So these weather sensitive indices are developed by the NCDEX, the National Commodity Exchange Derivatives. National Commodity Derivatives and Exchange. So this is going to launch the India's first weather indices, two indices, Indian Monsoon Index, which is the cumulative monsoon index, and India's rain index, which is monthly cumulative rainfall index. So both of these things will be launched by the NCDEX, the National Commodity and Derivative Exchange, and this NCDEX will use the Indian Meteorological Department definitions for the prediction like normal, above normal and deficit. Okay? And it would track the systematic rainfall movement using the rainfall data collection centers. So the frequently what is the rainfall and everything, it will be tracked on real-time basis, and this will be used in the index. Next one, you have the Serious Fraud Investigation Office. This Serious Fraud Investigation Office is under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which is to investigate serious frauds that happens, serious crimes, and prosecute them, mostly the white collar crimes. And this is set up on the recommendation of Naresh Chandra Committee on Corporate Governance, and this is a statutory body. Remember guys, this is a Serious Fraud Investigation Office is a statutory body. Next one is about the Open Credit Enabled Network. So Open Credit Enabled Network, actually this was in news because of this iSpirit. So this iSpirit has developed this Open Credit Enabled Network where small creditors and small borrowers can come together. Okay, so let's say for example a person needs 10,000 rupees and there is another person who has this 10,000. They can come together and do the transaction in this Open Credit Enabled Network. Okay, it's an innovative method where the lenders and the creditors, they can connect in a common marketplace. It's a common marketplace. It's not a particular bank or anything, right? But there are certainly risks involved, and as the risks are involved, the returns also will be high. Okay. So that's it friends for this lecture. We are done with this chapter 3. With the next topic, I'll see you again in the next video. Till then, keep studying and stay tuned to WOW IAS. Jai Hind.